Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for dropping by. My name is Patrick God, and in this tutorial now we're covering something that you wanted to see for a long time, and lots of you guys wanted to see that. We're talking about refresh tokens, and we are also implementing them, of course. And I have to tell you, I am really happy and very proud that this specific video here is sponsored by Skillshare. I'm pretty sure you know what Skillshare is, but in case you don't, now Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands and thousands of inspiring classes for anyone who loves learning and wants to explore their creativity and learning new skills like programming, of course, .NET 6, Blazor, C#, or programming in general, whatever it is. Skillshare is the perfect place to invest in yourself and your personal growth. Now, if you have a specific skill you're trying to learn, like authentication, for instance, or authorization in .NET 6, Skillshare is the perfect place to start, from not only programming, but also photography, illustration, graphic design, freelancing, productivity. That's what I really like. You can find classes that will match your goals and interests. And I can already tell you now that, of course, I also will create courses on Skillshare. For instance, this authentication and authorization jumpstart course with .NET 6. And there we will also have a look at refresh tokens, starting with JSON Web Tokens, of course, and then also covering roles. So not only authentication, but also authorization, and then also implementing refresh tokens. And we will go a bit deeper there. We will also use a database where we store the users and the tokens, the refresh tokens, not the JSON Web Tokens, the refresh tokens, and then fiddle around with that. And what I really love about Skillshare is that these classes, most of these classes, are only 1 to 2 hours long, maybe 3 sometimes, but I love that you really get jumpstart courses like mine, and maybe also future courses I create. So you get lots and lots of information in just a few hours or even minutes. So maybe you want to have a look. I personally love also the courses of Marcus Brownlee regarding YouTube, because I'm doing this here, and also the productivity classes of Ali Abdaal or Thomas Frank. So make sure to join this great community and use my code PatrickGod. That's me. So either just use this coupon code or head down to the video description and then use this link to get 1 month of Skillshare for free. So essentially you can get all the courses I talked about and my courses on Skillshare for free. So don't miss this opportunity. I can wait. Just hit pause. I'm taking a sip of my coffee. Use the code yet? Okay, great. So now I would say, after you've joined Skillshare, enjoy this tutorial here on my channel. All right, real quick. I rarely do this in my tutorials, but please, if you want to do this hands-on and code that stuff with me, then please check out the GitHub repository in the video description, because this is kind of a part 3 of an authentication and authorization series on my YouTube channel. We already covered the JSON Web Token stuff, then we implemented the roles, and now I'm going to show you how to use refresh tokens in custom authentication and authorization implementation with .NET 6 and a web API. So this is the GitHub repository, JWT Web API tutorial. Again, here we will see something about logging in a user, registering a user, and creating a JSON Web Token, and also adding roles to that token. But now in this little tutorial, we will add refresh tokens and make use of them. Now, again, for the recap, let me open Visual Studio. This is how the code then looks like. You will see here that we've got no database whatsoever. What we do here, pretty simple actually. We just store a static user here in the auth controller and do something with that user, right? So when we register the user, we will set the name and the password, hash and salt and so on. But this is part of the first tutorial, so please have a look there. I think we don't need this, so I can remove that and save it, and it should be rebuilt. And then let's have a quick look what the application is actually all about. So when you start this thing, we can use Swagger UI here. This is pretty neat to, well, test our application. And what you see here is we can register a user, and this user again will then just be set. The static user will be set with the username and the password hash and salt. Of course, you can change that, or you just leave it at string. Pretty creative, I know. but let's just execute this, and now the user is registered. Of course, in the real world, you would not return the password hash and the salt or the username. Well, maybe the username, but of course not the password hash and the salt. But for learning purposes, I think this is totally fine. And now what we can do is we can log in with the same credentials, so string. And what we see here now is the actual JSON web token. Let's copy this thing already, because now the thing is, in essence, this is now the responsibility of the front end. So whatever you want to do with this token is up to you or the front end. Do you want to store this in the local storage? Do you want to store this token in the session storage? Or do you just want to store this not at all, or just in memory, right? So when you want to do this, just use the JSON web token in memory and well, enable the user then to still use the application the next day without logging in again. Then you might want to combine this with a refresh token, and because with the help of a refresh token you can get a new JSON web token. But you will see how this works in a minute. Let's just copy this thing now, and this is now our secured endpoint here, this auth thing, which is just returning the username. When we try this out and hit execute, we see an unauthorized code here, the 401. This is what we get from here's the request method and the status code now. This is what's coming back, all right, from the service. And now we can set this token here, the bearer token, authorized, close, execute again, and we see the username string. Isn't that nice? Okay, so this is just a quick recap of the current application. And now let's implement the refresh tokens. So we go back to Visual Studio. And what I can already say is that there's no fancy algorithm stuff or anything like you have seen this with the JSON web token, right? So when we generate this here, you see the claims, you see the signing credentials, the security algorithm, and so on. Not necessary here. A refresh token, in essence, can be anything you want. So in our case, this will just be a series of some characters. And the very first thing we will do is add a new model. So right click our project, add a new class, and call this simply refresh token. And now again, we are not using a database here. We do this in the Skillshare course though, so please have a look at the video description and grab your free trial of Skillshare. There you will be able to enjoy this complete course then. But for now, let's just give this thing 3 properties. First, the actual token, which by default is string empty. All right, and then 2 more things. But again, this is really up to you. There's no, well, how can I say this, defined implementation. There's not one best implementation for refresh token, I would say. There are several ways to do this. So we here implement a really simple way, because this model here will be used to also store these information with the user, right? So we've got the token string, we've got a date when this thing is created, datetime now, and we've got an expires date, and this is important. With that, we can say, okay, now let's say the refresh token is valid for 7 days, and you come back on day 8, and then the user has to log in again, but within a week, the user could actually get a new JSON web token just with the help of the refresh token, right? So this is what we do. And if you want to use a, well, let's say more comprehensive implementation, then you would also give this refresh token an ID and store all the refresh tokens of a particular user in a database. And then you can also revoke them. You can say, okay, this refresh token is old, this is not valid anymore, but it's related to this specific user. So if someone is trying to use this refresh token and there's actually a newer refresh token, but somebody used an older refresh token, then maybe something fishy is going on here. Okay, so this is what you can do with a refresh token in essence. Nonetheless, we've got our refresh token model, and now let's go to our user model and add this thing here as well. So we've got another string, call this refresh token, string empty, maybe again. So string empty, and then also the dates, date time, date created, and also date time token expires. And actually I wanted to call this token created and token expires. All right, so this is what we do. Again, this user here, just a static user right here, not in the database, nothing like that. So we don't need a migration or anything. We just do it here real quick and dirty. Okay, now what we want to do next is when the user is logging in, then we not only create a JSON Web Token here, all right? So we've got our login method. We test if the username is correct and the password is correct. And then if so, we create a JSON Web Token. But additionally, we also want to create a refresh token. So let's write this down here and we will add the methods for that in a minute. So first, this is the refresh token. Let's call this method then generate refresh token. And also what we want to do is set refresh token. And with this method, then we will set our HTTP only cookie. Why HTTP only? Well, that way no JavaScript is able to get the value in the browser. So this is HTTP only. We can just use it with our requests. So that's that. And now down here, let's create our generate refresh token method. So private refresh token and then generate refresh token. All right. And in here now we say refresh token is a new refresh token. And we already set some values. And this is the only fancy stuff here. We say convert to base 64 string and then random number generator, get bytes, and let's say this is 64. All right, so this is then our token. This thing expires in, let's say, date time now at days 7. And it is created where we did this already in the model, but still date time now. All right. And now we return our refresh token. Okay, so this is how we generate the actual token. And now we want to set the cookie. So we add another method here, private void set refresh token with the new refresh token. All right. And here now we say var cookie option. So this will be our cookie, new cookie options. And here we say, very important, HTTP only is true and expires is not datetime now, it is a new refresh token expires. All right. And then we say response cookies. And this is pretty easy with .NET. Append, and this will be the value of the cookie. And here we say new refresh token, and also add the cookie options. And that's how you add a cookie to your response. And now also we set the same stuff for the user. So our token is the new refresh token. User token created is new refresh token created. All right. And user token expires is this value here. Okay. And with that, we can actually already test that. Don't know where the error is. Generate refresh token. Generate, get refresh token. Of course, it's generate refresh token. Save this again and start the app again. And then we have a look. All right, there we are. Okay, so nothing has been changed here. But when we now say we register this user with string, and now we log this user in, okay, hit execute, and now let's see response headers, set cookie, refresh token. See that? HTTP only. So this is now the refresh token. And when we go to the application section here, we also see our refresh token here. Isn't that great? So this is how we already define the refresh token. And this now is automatically sent with another request. So when we now say, let's try this endpoint here. We hit execute. Of course, we get a 401 back. But what we see now here with the request headers, cookie, refresh token. So this is already sent with this request. No matter if we send an authentication header with this or not, the cookie is sent nonetheless. And this is what we will use next. We will try to get this refresh token and check if this thing is valid, and then we generate a new refresh token and refresh it. So many refreshing tokens here today. So let's go back to Visual Studio. And so we've got our set refresh token, generate refresh token, and now we need another endpoint. All right, so let's do this here. This is now an HTTP post in essence. Could actually be also a get. No, let's use a post, and we call this refresh token. And this is a public async task I action results. Actually, let me double check. Yeah, we will use the string again, because why did I check this? I want in essence do the same thing we did here. I only want to return the string here, which will then be the new JSON web token, and the refresh token, the new refresh token, will again be sent with the cookie. Another option would be to use let's say an authenticate response DTO, so an object where we send then the JSON web token combined in one package with the refresh token, and also the created and the expires values of this refresh token. This then can be stored in the front end, for instance, so the front end can do a bit more with that, because the crucial thing here is, and that's the question I asked myself when I learned about refresh tokens, when do you decide to call this endpoint, right? So when should this happen? And this is totally the responsibility, again, of the front end. So when the front end says, hey, I see my JSON web token is expiring in a couple of minutes or in a couple of seconds or something, then I automatically call this. Or another thing I already saw is that you call this this endpoint in an interval. So you say every 5 minutes or so, I want to get a new refresh token, and so you can do this as well with this endpoint then. So we just call this refresh token because we want to refresh our refresh token. Should get a refreshing drink. And now, first, what we want to do is we want to get our cookie, and of course we cannot use the interface here, and this is returning nothing, but it will in a minute. So first we access the cookie and the refresh token. So var refresh token, the one that was sent with this request now, is simply request cookies, and then in brackets refresh token. Isn't that great? And now we check, is this thing valid? So what you can do when you use a database, you will have a look for the user that currently has this refresh token. But in our case, we only have one user. So what we do is user refresh token. If this thing is not equal to this refresh token now, then we just, no semicolon. What we do then is we return an unauthorized with a text like invalid refresh token. And also, what if this thing already expired? Then we say user token expires smaller than date time now. And in this case, we again return unauthorized, but maybe with another message. Here we say token expired. All right. Otherwise, if everything is okay, then we say we generate a new JSON web token with create token, okay, for this user here. And then we say var new refresh token is generate refresh token. And then again, we set this new refresh token. And again, we return OK token. All right, quick recap. We get the refresh token from the cookie. We check if everything is okay with that refresh token. If so, we generate a new JWT, a new JSON web token, and also a new refresh token. And we return the JSON web token and set the new refresh token to the cookie. And now we restart our application and test this. And then you see that in 20 to 30 minutes, you already have implemented your refresh token functionality in the backend, not in the front end, but in the backend, and a really simple one. So maybe you would want to invest some more minutes to use a database here. So we've got our new endpoint here, refresh token, right? What happens if you do this here? Try this out, it executes. Well, invalid refresh token. Okay, this is great. This is absolutely correct because we have a wrong refresh token here because we restarted the complete application. So let's try that again. We register a new user. Try this out. It executes. Then we log this user in. All right. And here we get our JSON web token. And we also get our refresh token. And now let's have a look and focus on the refresh token. So this is the value here, C5BG and so on. And now what we can do is we can try this endpoint here again. We hit execute. We get a new JSON web token. Isn't that nice? And you saw it here already. We refreshed our token, our refresh token. So we hit execute again. And again and again, and you always get a new refresh token. And now let's say again we manipulate this. So we removed something here, hit execute, it says invalid refresh token. When I add the one here back, then I can see I get a new JSON web token. And now let's change the date. Give me a sec. Adjust date time. There it is. So we changed that. We've got May the 2nd, and now let's say we've got the 10th maybe. Change this and try that again. Hit execute, token expired. Isn't that great? And this, my friends, is how you implement a really simple way where you can use a refresh token. Make sure to check out the video description for the GitHub repository. Of course, I will push this in a minute. And also don't forget to join Skillshare and grab your free trial. That's it, guys. Just maybe half an hour and you are using refresh tokens with your whole authentication implementation. Pretty easy, right? Don't forget to grab my code, Patrick God, that's me, to join the Skillshare community, and then you can get the complete course where we go from creating users or registering users, creating JSON web tokens, and also refresh tokens, adding roles, and so on. And you can do all that for free. So isn't that great? Grab the code or check out the link in the video description. And additionally, if you like this video, then then please, I would really love it if you click the like button and maybe even subscribe to my channel. Currently, I try to upload a video every single week on Tuesdays. Don't forget the bell icon to get a notification for new videos. Don't forget to also consider joining my newsletter. That would be really nice. That way you get these YouTube videos here earlier in your inbox and a couple more stuff. Promise won't spam you. At max, I send an email once a week, maybe rather less, but still you will get an email by me. And the last thing, my coffee unfortunately is already empty again, but thank you so much to all my supporters getting me a coffee or a tea or whatever it is. Thank you so much for supporting me. This is the way I am able to create all these videos. And if you're still with me, thank you so much. And maybe here are some other videos you are interested in. If so, just click on the thumbnail and watch other .NET and Blazor stuff, and maybe also some other stuff you're interested in. Would love to see you here on my channel again. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope I see you next time. Take care.